and her name is Anne Beals, and she is the Director of Service User Involvement at Together. And she got the job maybe 4 years ago, and after she got the job, they wrote to her GP, and they said to her GP, we want a health form filled in. So he called her to the surgery, and he said, look, Anne, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to have to write down about your mental health problems. And she said, yes, please write them down, because that's why I got the job. And the GP was just sort of flabbergasted. And I tell that story to sort of say, in a way, that some of what we're doing here is just opening up access a bit more, but some of what we're doing is actually flipping the whole thing over and really changing people's mindsets. Maybe the GP, Anne's GP, has changed a bit from that experience, but that whole idea that people who have mental health issues or difficulties, that experience is actually can and perhaps should be often a very good experience that they can learn from and actually then teach others and basically move on from that, was something which, if I had mentioned that 40 years ago in the large psychiatric hospital, I think I would have been laughed out of the place. Okay, so my particular piece of work, it's pretty short term in that what happened was Anne, as the Director of Service User Involvement at Together, is part of a ministerial working group on equality and mental health. And this is chaired by Paul Burstow. He is a minister. He is actually a Lib Dem MP for Sutton in London, and his title is Minister of State for Care Services, Department of Health, obviously, so very much a health perspective rather than an education one. So at the last meeting, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Anne raised the issue of access to and involvement in further and higher education for people with lived experience of mental distress. And she said that in her experience, despite recent advances, there still were many barriers to be overcome, which we've heard a bit about already today. Also, and maybe quite crucially, she is quite witty, and she made Paul Burstow laugh, and he said it's the first time he'd ever laughed in a ministerial working group. Subsequently, an email came from him to her at Together saying that he'd like more information. What are these problems? What are the possible solutions in relation to people's experience, both students and learners and trainers and teachers, in access to further and higher education? So I was asked to do a bit of work, 2 or 3 days, to put something together, and then I contacted Katina, and lo and behold, this day was on. So I thought, this is wonderful, I'd like to come along. Even better, then she said I could have a few words to you and ask you some questions, and you would perhaps give some feedback I could put into the response. I have to do the response actually tomorrow, so it's come at a very good time. I've done a bit of a draft, you would imagine, at this point, but obviously with all of you here today from all your different backgrounds, it's absolutely a heaven-sent opportunity, so I'm very pleased to have come here to be able to do this. Not only that Katina's worked out some quite sophisticated exercise, so I was thinking, how am I going to do this, but she's actually worked something out to follow on from this. So just to summarise, I think at the bottom of here I've got, hopefully everybody can more or less see that. So these are the main things that the Minister, Paul Burstow, and that particular ministerial working group would like to know about: problems and possible solutions for learners or students, teachers and trainers in accessing and being involved in further and higher education. So it's quite broad.